resulted in a shelter in Krakow, and a help center in Krakow, as well as people being run out of Ukraine and then aid running back in. This reflected what we were doing in Lviv, where we have 2 shelters, and we had the church set up as a help center, and where we were trying to receive aid into Lviv and get it to the east. So that's what was started we're getting close to 100 days of war. Excuse me. So what would start happening is people started sending aid in the early days. This next photo shows some of the stuff we were getting. It's just boxes of stuff of well-intentioned people. And we would get it from Krakow, drive it to Lviv. This is a picture of the Lviv church administrative building. And this is what you would get. Go to that. That's good, Brad. That next one. And this is what you would get. And you would have to figure out what it is, how it's, we were all new to the thing. Where do these diapers go? And where does cat food go? And why did someone send whatever it is? And so you sort it, you try and figure it out, and you get it out as soon as possible. And it was reactionary of the highest order. So yeah, you see Adam and Eve over there. This is the basement of the church where the children's ministry was. And sadly, when the war, when the invasion started, there were no children in Lviv for the most part. And so the basement became the aid center. So it was sorted, and people are trying to figure it out. One of the things that's often overlooked is in the midst of the war, people just needed to be busy with their anxiety, their trauma. Not all of us can go to the front and shoot stuff. So everyone was just trying to stay mentally healthy week to week. So it did give us a big way to participate in loving our fellow man and countrymen across the country. And so this is what we were doing early, was just trying to figure out what do we do with all this aid coming in, and it wasn't stopping. Now we would take it from Lviv in this next photo, and we would run it to the east. This is a run to Kyiv. That's some, in his hand is some medical kits, which are very helpful. Sadly, this is also for civilians, not just military, because the Russians seem to be very more willing to fight women and children and civilians than the military. But a lot of the basic medical supplies are saving a lot of lives, as well as this is probably food and hygiene products that go to Kyiv. The next picture, for example, this lady, I think she had a stroke, and this was medication that had dried up in her area. So we find it, give it to her. This is just normal stuff that any of you would do if you were here. And then we had more of a special medical thing. These are surgical. Some medical people are going to have a fit when they hear me. So these are surgical utensils, I think, in the sterilization containers, whatever. It's specialized medical stuff that this clinic, if you go back one photo, BC, that clinic, you can see the TVs in the background. So it's like a medical clinic. You see the boxes that are piling up, and they're just drastic needs, and they go from city to city. I mean, the city next to you gets bombed, and you've got all these bloody people everywhere. And then the hospital gets bombed, and you have to move people out. And that's what we're trying to respond to. So I hope this is interesting. I don't know if this is boring or not, but I think it's important. So what we were also trying to do is people were giving money and praying, which that was very key for the prayer sustaining us week to week. We were trying to find aid because large international aid organizations wanted to help, but they don't know anybody in country. And we know all the churches across Ukraine. We're not big, but we're just kind of spread out and very high quality pastors and folks. So we would go to aid stations that are already in the country, and we would gather the aid and then send it on to our people. And we could do that for medical as well. So this next picture right there is us going to a local medical importing organization. Because sending medical aid is very complicated, all the paperwork and all this stuff. And that's one of the interesting things that we've have a workaround is customs and taxation in a legal way. So this is the headquarters of a medical unit that has a medical organization that imports medical supplies, but they need partners. So the church, we sent the church there. I mean, this is the representatives with some others with experience, and we become a partner for distributing medical supplies across the country. So we're trying to take donated stuff and keep moving it on, not just spend the aid money locally if we can be more resourceful. So that's been some of the aim. And then get the medical, food, and hygiene products to the people of the greatest need, while at the same time, and this guy is a good example of it, our own people are being called up into service, and the military is trying to figure out how they can kit out everybody and provide the needs. So this is Yuda. He worked at the seminary. He was out in the Lviv church for a while. He had previous military experience, and they didn't call him up for a while. Then suddenly he's in. And so this was stuff, you can see his name is upside down there, sent to him. And to him and his unit. So this is keeping him alive. I think it was filled with tourniquets. They're saving lives everywhere. Here's some other guys. I do not know these guys, and I don't know if I'm supposed to know them. This is them at our church. Excuse me, which I think is really a great opportunity. The bag on the ground are medical kits, and he has them open there. So you got tourniquets or whatever you get blasted by something. And so I don't know who these guys are, but they're packing that stuff up, taking it to the front. The soldiers are the ones that aren't even, they're not just taking care of the military, they're taking care of civilians. So that's another avenue. We're trying to get it in the hands of the most needy, not with strings attached. You know what I mean? Like, let me read a verse to you and, you have to attend church later. Obviously, we're not, you want to show care, but you don't help people with funky strings attached. So we were on a learning curve. People were giving it. We were trying to figure out what are the needs. So we had several Ukrainians. We have doctors, medical people in Ukraine help us figure out what are the most commonly requested lists, because in Lviv at the time, you would get every day, we would get spammed with, we need these kind of military cars. We need these kind of hospital products. We need these kind of medicines. And people are just shooting them everywhere. So we consolidated all the lists from institutions, medical institutions, military / military hospital type needs, basic food needs and hygiene needs, and went through them and figured out what are the things that we could find locally, resource locally from things that were already donated, what are things that we could buy or acquire in Europe, and what are things that would be better to get in the US. And that allowed us to come up with lists. Here's one to import. I think this might have been medical stuff. I mean, I can't say with certainty what it is. I mean, but whatever. This was, as we started getting our act together, this was probably medical supplies that came in. And so what this led us to do was to think, instead of reacting repeatedly and trying to sift through stuff, that some of it may be needed and some of it's not, all of it's well-intentioned, and we're very happy for that. What are ways that we can let the church and the country make their request through us? We can sift those out and find where we can get those the cheapest. And for those Americans in the room, the cheapest stuff in the world is in America. I mean, for the most part. I mean, bulk buying stuff. And even, I mean, we're in one of the poorest countries in Europe, but the US, it's cheaper to buy almost everything except like maybe butter or something. Now, granted, kind of gas has gone up, but let's just, before the impact of war and everything. So because the US has access and supply and the cost that's very low, that helped us figure out what are some things that people in the US could send that's being requested. And then we connect that. And so that led us to come up with the idea of putting the list together and giving it to people in the States. They put it in crates, send it over, and we can send the crates from Krakow to Lviv and then from Lviv on. So here's a young guy. He's not so young anymore. His name is Billy. I've known him for over a decade, and he's a guinea pig from Dallas, where the list was received by the church. They pack these crates, and then they send these crates with a courier, Billy. Now we would say, well, why would you send the crates with a courier? I mean, the cost of a plane ticket. I mean, Billy's got to eat somewhere, spend the night. Like, that's super expensive. And it seems like it's more expensive than the alternatives until you consider several things. One is the urgency of the need, like the needs now. It's not in 8 months whenever a container shows up. Two, we have a massive issue with customs. If you ship things through with DHL, or even if you send it slow roll it on a tanker, the customs can hold it up for weeks, and the taxes from those things are more expensive than what we're doing. So this Billy is allowed at this. I mean, he brought 6. I think you can bring up to 14. You bring them in, the list is on them, so they pass right through customs toll free. We roll them out, throw them in the vans. We have 2 vans there, only one's pictured. Throw these crates in the van. There's some drivers. We load it into a warehouse. This is our warehouse. It was a former bank, but you get it. We stack these 6 or however many, like there's a lot of space for it. Then we get them as fast as possible in vans that run to Lviv. And so again, because they're packed, go back, stay on that last one, BC, because whenever they leave the States, there's a list of what's there and it's packed. So whenever Billy flew over, there was a list. So if anyone asked him at customs, he could just say, here, goes through. Then when it gets to Krakow, nothing has to be done. I mean, we just log when it goes. So when they get to the border of Ukraine, there's the list. It goes through. There's no customs cost and there's no duties so far, and it rolls right into the church. So it goes from Billy's church group and the hands of the church members there in Dallas, all the way now through. This next picture I don't think this is the trip where they're unpacking those particular crates, but this is the deal. No, go back one more. So this van pulls up in the yard, and then we load those crates. We walk them down into the basement. We're working on a first floor warehouse site where this can be a little bit easier, but I like that it's in the church, because I really like that this new building is being used. It has like signs of like not being destroyed, but like being all marked up. So all these crates go into the basement. BC, that next photo, that's where our crisis team is. We're currently now working on how we process the crates and then make them we repackage them individually for the needs across Ukraine, depending on what they are. So it can be like all food or all medical, or you can whatever they decide, and they prioritize weekly. So these go to churches that we already know, or communities that those churches know, or the most needy, the latest area of need. And we start that process. So we kick that off. Not only does it go from, in this case, Dallas to Krakow into Lviv, but that next photo is then we have people in Lviv that want to take it from Lviv to the rest of the country. So that next photo, BC, there's been a problem with diesel. I don't know if you know this, but Russia seems to have been providing a lot of oil to a lot of people. And 2014 war that got started did not have anyone stop. Looking at you, Germany. So as everyone's trying to stop the oil, we're all having to get it now. We're importing our oil from Poland. And so we figured out a way to import our own diesel and travel with it. This is us filling up our own vans for a run for aid. A very resourceful group here. Diesel's more of a problem than the regular, benzene? I don't know what we call it in the States. Like 95, 97, whatever that gas. This is gas, right? So this is just what's happening is we're trying to figure out ways where churches can say, if we want to help, we've already given, we prayed, we want to give more and participate. What are ways we can do it in a meaningful way where our help actually helps? This allows it to go from Dallas all the way into Lviv. And then this Lviv crew, as well as the churches in Ukraine, figure out how do we disseminate it. We don't want to just disseminate it. It ends up in people's hands, and we want the gospel to not only accompany it through the demonstration, but preferably in the proclamation and following up with gospel communities. So here are a few faces. And granted, these look like we're actually doing an advertising campaign. This lady got some medication. I think she was in Kharkiv. This next lady here, I think, got medication. So most of the old people have medications and they can't live without them. So that's become a really high priority. There's other people that have gotten some food, other clinic. There's pictures of clinics. I could show a lot of photos, but you get the idea that this is about people made in the image of God in the most difficult times of their lives. And how does the church come in and demonstrate the gospel and be willing to follow it up where the Spirit leads with gospel communities later? And I don't know where that's going to be. I don't know how that's going to work, but I know that God makes it work. He's been doing that with respect to the New Testament church for several thousand years. So that's the idea. And so what's in the lady's hands there could be packed by someone in a pew or in a church. And it could be a very small church. It could be a big church. It doesn't matter. And it can get all the way up. So we've been working on that process, Crates for Ukraine, how to put together something that's urgent. It's not going to be super professional. This may not last for more than a month or two, but ways that we can respond to the needs of the Ukrainian churches and the Ukrainian people as they're asking, and use our resources, our time, and fulfill God's global mission and kind of one another, the church across the globe, this way. So this is something we're wanting to pull off. We're trying to put together a website that's just one place that answers all the questions. We're trying to make it idiot proof. And obviously they're going to send me to check it. We have in-house vetting. But whenever that website gets up, then it'll be launched just through our own contacts. This is the crisis team in Lviv. These are the people who get requests. One of them, I mean, there's a lot of different churches, get requests for need and have narrowed the list down and are able to modify the list that go back. And so they're the ones that receive it. Now, one thing that's missed, I think sometimes, there's several frequently asked questions, I think, for this. One is, why not just buy it there? It's a good question. And that's good. Well, the reason that we don't buy it here is twofold. One is we might not have those things available. And if they're available, they might be more expensive. And to the degree that we spend more and more of the aid money on these kinds of needs, it takes away from the aid money that allows these churches to continue to build, because we don't know how long the war is going to be. So there's a little bit of a stewardship issue where we don't want to go spend aid money for things that we can resource without spending money. Obviously, we're going to spend money. If a pastor asks for stuff, we're given money, they're able to spend it. But if we can be wise about this, if people want to give and they can give things that can go right through and we can save money, that would be good. The other thing is we can't buy some of the things that we're requesting. And some of the things that if we bought them, we could buy one here, but you can get 6 in the States. So it's also good stewardship. There is a sense in which also there's some questions of why fly someone over to bring the crates. Hopefully I answered that with respect to like efficiency, finances. It's the cheapest way, customs and taxation, but we're going to get that one, I think, no matter what. I would also encourage people that there are medical people, there are cross-cultural workers, there are international entrepreneurs that have participated in trying to put this together. So it looks like this seems to be fairly solid, but that may bring up some questions. And I think this is where you would feel more than free to ask whatever questions you want. Now, we did soft launch this in North Texas Presbytery. Graham Purcell and I, who are both members of North Texas Presbytery, spoke to the Presbyterian. I don't know when it was. I mean, I don't even know what today is. Before today. And we zoomed in, announced it. And so people could start trying to see the process, and they could, it happens in several phases. You take it and you get a list. There's 3 or 4 lists and you buy this stuff. There's a crate. They tell you where in Walmart to order the crate. I mean, apparently they're all black, right? And then you stuff the crates in, and then you figure out, okay, what are we going to do with these 6 crates or 14 crates? Is someone from our church want to be the courier? Does someone have miles? Like, how can we work this together? This can go to a youth group that could do it. You could have several churches gather together. I mean, it's kind of endless. You know, you can have the what do they call that? Like the owls group, whatever they call the more mature people in the church, like the wise ones, the owls. I don't think we said that. Whatever. Like, this can be sponsored really by any group. It doesn't have to come out of the church budget. It could be an extra project. It could get very bureaucratic in a church, or it could be very quick. Obviously, this is an urgent need. So we're not asking for this to be in the budget for 2023. But these are just ways that people can respond. We have youth who have heard about this are trying to respond. You have families that are just like, hey, why don't we do this? And this isn't necessarily limited to, this is not limited to the PCA. It's not limited to whoever gets wind and wants to help, we're going to take it, because everything that comes in, that's aid that goes, helps encourage the believers through the chain. It helps save aid money so we can get it later. And it allows the church in the States to participate in a very helpful way, in a meaningful way, in a way that helps expand the vision of mission for the globe and hopefully help strengthen the local church. So that's what's been going on so far. So Crates for Ukraine, we will try to launch that this week. Now, you may be saying, okay, there's a list in the chat of churches that are already, Cindy Ray has put this together. So these are churches that have already responded in some way, and they've signed up. If you are interested in signing up, just keep your pants on. We're trying to get the website set up so whenever you're able to sign up and participate, that it's fully automated, so we don't have just emails, just all that going on. So we're hoping to have that together in the next week or so. We are trying to also answer the most commonly asked questions because of the urgency of this. And this is not necessarily something that we're going to have a team that goes out and just advertises this like we want to recruit for it. We just want to make the need known. So I will, if you are not on my prayer, like what prayer, I forgot what it's called.
Newsletter.
The prayer letter. There you go. The prayer letter, for me, where I send that thing out to MailChimp, I know there's got to be 500 people on that thing. If you're not on that, that is where I will announce with the way I do the Zoom update. I'll say, now it's time for Crates for Ukraine. I'll give some information and send the link. So one link will send everyone to one page. That's how we will do it. If you want to sign up for that, you just write me at ukrainetexas@gmail.com. Bradley will put that in the chat. That's one way to do it. If you're not getting my support letter, which is fine. I mean, if you're not an email person anymore, the other way is Facebook. I will post it there. When it happens, you can repost. You can just post to your heart's content for you happy posters. There's nothing. When this goes out, there are no limitations for who can participate. Obviously, if they're massive, people are unable to travel by themselves, they can't really be a courier. But this isn't a complicated thing. Pack it, no weapons. You can't be involved in weapons and international, trafficking. You just put that stuff in the box. It gets couried over. The great thing is when the couriers come over, I don't know if I'll be able to be in Krakow, but hopefully I'll be able to interact with those people so they can see how helpful this is, what the bigger vision is, and they can take that encouragement and vision back to the church as a way to bring God glory. So the Facebook page would be my Facebook. I don't know what my name is on that. All right.
I just posted your Facebook.
Oh, thank you. There you go. So there's me on Facebook too. I'll announce it there. We will put it on our Twitter. Not Twitter. I'm not putting it on my Twitter thing. I'm putting it on Instagram. There's an Instagram. This will go up on Voice of Ukraine. If you haven't checked out Voice of Ukraine, that's probably the most prolific place writing information about Ukraine. That will be there. So whenever it launches, you'll see it there as well. So, and then I think at some point, well, that's how we'll do it. And we'll have other people with their supporters, and then you can send it on to people you want. We're just kind of work it through people that trust the system and the value. It is an MTW team. So it has the MTW name. I think we'll have the MTW logo on some of this stuff, so people don't think this is some kind of hustle, where we're trying to hustle a lot of hygiene products. Though I like the suspicion. I like that. I'm very cynical and suspicious myself, but we should have some MTW thing on there. It should be quite visible and not look too shady. So That was a good attempt. How do you get around? Okay. So far in the organization has allowed us a lot of freedom to have crisis response because it is often reactive. And if we need to pivot to be proactive, we all buy into the same philosophy of ministry and values. So in that sense, there's several ways we could do it. We could approach the MTW mothership with all of its stuff and say, look, can you do this? And they would turn it into like a mega thing. Because the urgency, we didn't have the ability to kind of do that because it would really ramp up. That's typically how churches do it. It's like, let's really vet it. Let's really check it. And it takes forever. Since this is the needs of yesterday, we're trying to get it out. So it's going to be a little bit sloppier. We hope it's not like mom and pop in a bad way, but that this is simple. It's global crisis help for dummies. And this is how we do it. So MTW has been helpful in that. And there was some email this week where they seem to be, well, yeah, they're all for it in that sense. They just don't want me to get in a position where I get myself in trouble. Can you imagine them having that concern? So in Doc Met, so someone needs to accompany the crates. That's a good question. We have two options on that. And if this doesn't make a lot of sense, there will be a PDF later with pictures and colors and stuff like that. The idea is a small church or a big church, doesn't matter, could come up with 6 to 14 crates. And then they ideally would have someone from their congregation that could fly over and visit Krakow, drop the crates off, and then return home. If a church says, look, we want to do crates and we'll do like 20, 30 crates, but we don't have anyone to go over, then what we will do as our team, and we'll have US Ops project manager, and we have a help team, and that help team will help figure out where your crates are, and we'll have some regional way that can be sent over. For example, in the Dallas area, we have a place that anyone that's close to Dallas can send their crates in, and we'll figure out how to get it from there with couriers over. So you do have a way to pack the crates, even if your church can't sponsor the courier. Now, another great thing about this is it does allow us to continue to give to this, and for people to participate that may not naturally participate in something like this. So people can give their miles. I don't know how all that works because I'm by the time I accrue them, and it's just so exhausting. Anyway, there are people that know the miles and they know how to do it. So you can have people participate on that side. There's Packy McPack Pants, those people that are just like, let me get it, they're going to do their thing. There may be people that want to and are willing to fly over and take the crates and come back. So that would be ideal. If they do not have a courier, then we'll try to get the crates to where we can get a courier. So this should allow you to see how we're trying to respond. I wish this is a little more technical, but it has a face, meaning our work is intensely personal, and structure, organization, and immediacy, this high operation tempo, is how we respond well to the people. And so while this is a lot of process, this lets you know how you can pray for us in the upcoming weeks. This is actually just one part of what's going on, but something you can pray about. And then when this launches, we'll see what happens. It may be a spectacular nothing, or who knows what will happen with it. I figure if we just honor him in the process, he tends to take care of everything. Just as a reminder, and this can't be overstated, and I didn't see this coming because of I'm navigating quite a few areas of ignorance, but the receiving aid, as the aid comes into the Ukrainian church, receiving the aid is incredibly encouraging. And it doesn't matter what it is, so just the act of receiving physical aid means far more than the aid itself. Participating in helping figure out where it goes next is also incredibly helpful. Now, that's for normal people, but everyone's traumatized to some degree. So this is having a sustaining people, or it's healing, or it's allowing them to engage in something that they can tolerate that goes way beyond the price of the product or the ROI on our aid process, you know? So that's something I think the faces and requests of the Ukrainians are what are driving this. And I don't think any entrepreneur that wants to have a workaround can eclipse, I think, some of the way this is done that also doesn't devalue the kids, the adults, the whoever they are in the pew in the church in the States that say, I want to participate in a meaningful way. And you know how difficult it is. You want to help somewhere else. You're like, well, how do I help? Like, do I really trust the people? What's going on? Is my money going where I want, you know? And so this is just has a pew to pew, or your community to the Ukraine community connection. I don't know if I'm just restating myself, but anyway, thank you for your patience and allowing me to lay that out. Now, are there any questions